What's up, bro? It's your boy Joseph Blaine Brooks. Follow on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel so we can chop it up. Real quick, what I wanted to explain real quick to the world is why reparations should have been rewarded to black people. Why do people, a lot of white folks, they don't understand. You know why reparations was actually never given to black people? Originally, white society has always had this fear that if black people get in position, if they was to give black people reparations, it was just this great fear that black people will rise up and do better than white folks. And originally, the fear was that black people will do the same thing that what they have done to black people. This is the reason why they never gave black people reparations. So it's a contradiction to say that blacks shouldn't get reparations, you didn't work for it. It's not a handout. That's reparations. That's not a handout. It wasn't a handout for Native Americans. See, the thing is, Native Americans and blacks were enslaved by the same government at the same time. So why do people, think that, well, Native Americans rightfully so should have been paid out, but not black people because we wasn't born during slavery, we never met one? That's a contradiction. The truth of the matter is, white society went out their way to actually sabotage black Americans economically. Historically speaking, white people have done all these terrible things to black people, and they just taught black people to get over it. You wasn't there, and that's called white guilt. That's because they just want to sweep 500 years of genocide under the rug. They just want to just stop talking about it, In their minds, racial progression is a thing, but it's really not. Racial progression is an illusion that only white society, privileged white society, believes. There's never been racial progression in America. Never. Black presidents, that's not racial progression, because there's never been an agenda for black people. Reparations is important because black people today are still directly affected from slavery and things that came with it. Jim Crow itself was a form of slavery. Segregation and all these things that were going on, and nothing was ever done about it. White people just think that because you signed a bunch of bills and treaties and stuff like that, and everything is okay, and it's not. Those race massacres that went on, even if we take away slavery from the equation, if we take away slavery from the conversation, black Americans still have an argument for reparations, because race massacres that went on after slavery, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, the people still exist now. The victims never got anything. In fact, for most race riots, the victims never got anything. Right now, today. So even if we stop talking about slavery, or white society, you have to understand that if you are a white supremacist yourself, if you believe in equality and fairness, and you believe in racial progression, then you shouldn't be opposing reparations. Because white people have this, white supremacy, white society have this get away with mentality. It's something about white culture that makes them, that don't believe in some type of justice. They don't believe in justice and doing the right thing. So that is why they oppose reparations, because white society, white people, you have to deal with the fact that your ancestors have cheated their way in society. Even if you weren't born or not, but you reap the benefits of what your ancestors did in the world, and we are the victims and have to wear the scars. And that's really basically the truth. So I'm gonna land my plane like that. Reparations was never rewarded to black people. It has nothing to do with slavery not being a long time ago. It was just this thing with white people. If we give blacks money to repair themselves, they might come up and do us like they did us. So that's really basically the truth why reparations were never rewarded to black people. So, and it's just a contradiction. Everything people who oppose reparations, you're just contradicting yourself. That's all you're doing. Because like I said, you can't tell us what was the difference between what happened between Native Americans and black people. What was the difference? It was done by the same people at the same time. So you only oppose because, like I said, white people have this thing where black people get money, They know not everybody gonna trickle off of the club. There's something about black empowerment that's a threat to the establishment. So that is the reason why white lynch mobs, will go and just burn the shit down out of black successful businesses, destroying the wealth that black people created for themselves. Black people and white society, there's a wealth gap between each community. And the reason why it's a wealth gap is because black people, for one, inherit poverty. Poverty is something that you inherit. And white society got 500 years of free labor. So that's really the truth. So white people, stop saying for handouts and freebies. Your culture, white people, you come from a freebie getting culture. You got handouts, you got the freebies. Black people never got nothing for free. Nothing. Stop saying black people want handouts. You got handouts. White people are the last people to, I'm telling you, white people should have been the last people to talk about handouts. The last. You got the handouts. You got 500 years of free labor. They try to minimize slavery and make it as if like, oh, it was just a small percentage of blacks that was enslaved. Oh, it was just a small percentage. No, it wasn't. Slavery, in fact, the stock market was started by slavery. And the American economy was built off free labor. So that's really basically the truth. You cannot minimize what happened. If you're a white person, if you are not a white supremacist yourself, then you shouldn't be opposing blacks getting reparations. You just shouldn't. So that's just my opinion, and it is what it is. So it doesn't matter if I was born a slave or met no one that was a slave or not. Of course, no one met well, actually, people do well. People have met people that were slaves. I don't know where they get that from, but I don't know. They just think slavery was just like 1,000 years ago when it really wasn't. The last generation of slaves lived up to the 1960s. Some even lived to the 70s, which was our grandparents and some of our aunts and uncles who told us that atrocities would happen. So I don't know why white people think that black people never met anyone that was a slave. That's not true. That's not true at all. But to say anything different from that is just a white feel-good lie. When they say black people, you never met anyone that was a slave. I mean, I'm only 30 years old, but the thing is, there's black people who are older than me who have. So that's all I gotta say about the shit when I comment them out.